What's up, folks? Same spot, same outdoor office. Worked last time, so hopefully it's a goodie today. This one's for the people who decided to build something instead of just maintaining that paycheck. Because nobody really warns you about this part. Building your own thing is lonely. Not occasionally, actually structurally. And I don't mean I miss coworkers kind of lonely. I mean the kind of lonely where you're surrounded by people and still feel like nobody really gets what you're doing, what you're thinking. When you work a normal job, responsibility is distributed, right? Decisions get made above you and risk gets kind of absorbed by the company. It's not on you. When you build something yourself, that all collapses onto you. Every decision matters. Every mistake costs time or money, and every win is temporary relief, not actual safety. And your nervous system feels that. You're not just working, you're holding on to uncertainty all day, every day. Most people don't experience that, so they can't really relate to it. They see freedom, they don't see exposure or vulnerability. They see flexibility, they see vacations. They don't see the constant background math running in your head all day. Revenue, timing, opportunity costs. That mental load is absolutely invisible, and invisible pressure is so isolating. Here's something that hits kind of hard. When you leave traditional work, you also leave a shared language. No more busy season, no more promotions, no more clear ladders or corporate echelons. Your milestones stop making sense to most people. You tell someone you didn't make money this month because you reinvested, they hear failure. You tell them you turned down a safe opportunity because it didn't align long term, they hear irresponsibility. You tell them you're building something that won't pay off for a year or 2 or 5, they hear delusion. So you stop explaining. And that's where the loneliness deepens. Entrepreneurship strips away all that external validation real quick. No boss saying, good job. No performance reviews. No built-in reassurance. You're making high-stakes decisions with delayed feedback, and that totally messes with your head. This is why so many people quit right before things start working. Not because the idea was bad, not because they weren't capable, because the emotional cost got heavier than they ever expected it would. That said, let's talk about identity for a second. When you build something, you don't just risk money, you risk your sense of self. When it works, it feels earned. And when it doesn't, it feels personal, like a biggest failure ever could. That's a dangerous loop. You start tying your worth to outcome. Revenue months feels like you're winning. Dry months feels like absolute failure. It's not weakness, that's exposure without insulation. It's vulnerability. Most jobs protect people from that. Entrepreneurship removes the padding. It's a way harder landing. You're closer to reality, but reality doesn't care about your feelings. That's also why entrepreneurial growth is uneven. You don't just need skills, you need emotional capacity. You need to be able to hold ambiguity without freaking out or panicking, to move forward without guarantees, and to sit in silence without assuming something's wrong or feeling guilty for taking a break. That's a learned skill, and nobody teaches it. Instead, you're sold highlight reels, scaling stories, freedom timelines. That's why you got people on all the YouTube thumbnails promising 5-figure and 6-figure months, right? What they don't show is the middle part, the months where you're working consistently and nothing is obvious, nothing's working, nothing's moving yet. The weeks where your confidence dips for no logical reason, and the nights where you second-guess decisions that were correct, and it keeps you up all night. That's the real work, and it's lonely because you're doing internal labor that nobody ever sees. Here's a reframe that actually helps with that. Loneliness isn't a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a signal you stepped outside the herd. You're no longer buffered by a bunch of decisions. You're operating at the edge, and that edge is super uncomfortable, but it's also where leverage lives. Most people trade freedom for certainty. You traded certainty for control, and that comes with isolation up front and optionality and opportunity later. The goal is not to eliminate the loneliness, it's to understand it, to stop interpreting it as some kind of danger, stop running back to comfort just to quiet it. You don't need more motivation, you need containment, structure, rhythms, a few people who actually understand the game you're playing. That's where community matters too, and patience. Real businesses aren't built in hype circles. They're built in the quiet, repetitive, boring execution. The people who win aren't louder. They just last longer. If this feels heavy, good. It means you're in it. You're not dabbling, you're not pretending, you're actually building something. If it resonates, it's the truth. And that phase doesn't need to feel good to be right. It just needs to be honest. See you in the next one.